everyone! I decided it was time to celebrate both my nursery and this channel, and to do that I have selected 30 essential cottage garden perennials and annuals which just epitomise cottage garden style. This is going to be one of the longest videos we have ever put out on the channel. I do hope that you enjoy it. I'm also celebrating the launch of my new border course, but more about that later on in the video. Hello, I'm Rosie Hardy. This is Rosie Hardy Gardening. If you enjoy our videos, please do subscribe to the channel. So we're on the shady side here. Now, even in cottage gardens, I mean, everyone sees those picture box photographs of this lovely thatched cottage with this array of plant material all out in a really big sunny spot. But not everywhere is sunny. Around the back of the house there's probably shade. Even in that area there will be shade because of, you know, shrubs or trees and that sort of thing. So you need genus that will actually be really good for you in shady areas. Now again, I've picked ones here which are plants which you can find which will love shady areas. Not all of these specific ones I've got here will be those types, but within the family they will have ones which will go in the shade. So this is where looking at the families and going, okay, so they've got ones which are really small, they've got ones which are really tall, they've got different coloured formations. Which of those is the ones that I want to use and utilise and still give me that feel and that wonderful feel? So we start off with Clematis, Digitalis, Coreopsis, Alchemilla and hardy geraniums. There are plenty of Clematis. Now this is just something which will go in the ground and it goes upright. It doesn't take any of the soil sideways. So it's a very, very useful plant to use. You can put it up tripods, you can put it on a wall, put it on a fence. They like their roots and the bottom bit of the plant in the shade. So that is great. And then the rest of them goes up into the sun, or some of the varieties want to be in the shade totally. So they're very, very useful. They're not taking up a lot of space in the border, and it's great and it gives you that extra height. And then they can grow with other things. I mean, I've seen them growing up tripods with runner beans. They look fantastic, and this is all the thing when you're doing something that is cottage. They've got to all grow together, they've got to like each other. That particular one down there with that huge big flower, that is Yuan. Now Yuan is one that does like its head in the sun, but it likes its feet still to be cold and in the shade. So you can grow it on the shady side of a fence and up it goes and it'll flower on the other side. And that's what a lot of people do. They use them in that way, so that they've got them on the other side of the fence but they're growing in the shadier spot. Brilliant from that point of view. Then you've got things like the geums. Now this one is Bremner's. It's a lovely soft, starts apricot, goes slightly lemony. Then you get these fabulous seed heads, and this is a low one. It's not one of the really tall hybrid ones, and it has foliage and it'll grow. You can push it into a shady spot. It will go where other plants don't really like to grow and it'll fill a void. So they are very useful. And again, there are lots of other hybrid geums which are taller, brighter colours, but you'll find quite a few of the things that I've chosen which are for the shades, but a little bit on the yellow side. But that is great because yellow really pings out when you put yellow into a shady area, which is great because you need to have interest in the shade. So that one is one of these low growing ones. It will spread and make a really nice clump, and then it'll be great. Then you have the Digitalis here, and this is a different form. This is not your usual Digitalis purpurea, which will be a biennial and seed around. This is a perennial one. This is Digitalis grandiflora. Fabulous, different shaped. It's still you can still see it's a foxglove, but slightly different shaped on the front here. It's a little bit of a diamond shape. It's really beautiful, lovely. The insects love going into it. Strap-like green leaves, and it's going to make a perennial clump. So that one does like a shady spot. It's really great. Digitalis grandiflora. Then this particular Coreopsis I've got here is verticillata, and this particular one is Zagreb. So this is bright yellow daisies on the top of here. Now Zagreb prefers to be in probably a sunnier position, but there are Coreopsis such as Coreopsis verticillata moonbeam, which you can push into a shadier spot. So just have a look at the ones that you can push. There are species ones that you can push into the shady spot as well. So, but even within this range, they're not just yellow. There are all sorts of different colours within the Coreopsis, so you don't have to stick with yellow if you have a problem with it. But as I say, in shade, yellow is a good colour. It doesn't have to be brash. It can be a softer colour like these, so that is no problem at all. And then who wouldn't be without Alchemilla? Alchemilla is such a useful edging plant, a plant that will grow virtually anywhere. This is not your big chunky mollusk. This one is venosa. It's another species. Yes, it seeds about, but not as prolifically, so you'll only get little bits and pieces, and it makes a small amount. So this is really great. And again, you know, this is one that is used for cut flower, and it can be utilised for all sorts of things. So Alchemilla are really useful because they will grow anywhere, and it's very much an archetypal cottage garden genus. So don't just go, oh, I don't like Alchemilla. Think about it. Go for there are small ones which are great, which are just for crevices, etc. So they just give you that frothy feel. And if you go for the slightly smaller ones, they don't take over the world. Then hardy geraniums. Well, hardy geraniums are fantastic. They are the stalwart of any garden, especially a cottage garden. Brilliant. There are so many different forms. Just happened to get this little one. This one would go in the shade. This one is Biokovo. It has one of those scented leaves, and it spreads and makes lovely clumps. So you'll just get a lovely mat, and then it gets covered with these flowers and these beautiful seed heads, and it just makes amazing clumps. So these, you know, hardy geraniums, they can be big, they can be short, they can be blue, white, bright pink, almost red, soft creams, all sorts of different colours for different situations. So this is the beauty with, you know, looking at just a genus and then realising that actually there are ones that will go in that position, and then there are ones that go in that position, and you can choose the one that you like for the position that you have got in the garden. And quite a lot of things you suddenly find you can move them around to different places. But this is on the shady side. This is a little bit of lovely yellow, just to brighten up spots. More of these wonderful genus which are basically for cottage gardens. And you know, it's one of those things where they're old favourites. They are utilitarian plants, I suppose, and yet there are lots and lots of different forms within the plant families that we've got here. So for instance, the campanula here, this is Campanula porschkiana, and this is one of those ones which is a beautiful ground cover. It creates a large mat, but there are other campanulas which are taller, have hanging bells, or even smaller. So it's such a variable big family, but you can utilise and use. Now this is one of those ones which it can occasionally seed around, but it also makes lovely mats, and it can be used to hang over the edge of walls, for instance, or it can just be put somewhere in a shady spot where it will just meander around, because it doesn't really matter where it grows. It is a happy bunny anywhere, and that's what you really want with the cottage garden style. You want something that's easy, does its stuff, fills a gap, and just keeps on flowering to give you that mixture of colour. And this will flower and flower and flower. Such a brilliant family, Campanula, and that one is Campanula porschkiana. Now it wouldn't be a cottage garden without a Delphinium. And this one happens to be Galahad series. The Galahad series, this one's just about to flower, has beautiful big white flowers. Now even in the Delphiniums, there are lots and lots of different forms. So this is a mid-height one. These are only going to get to somewhere around about 4 feet. They're not the really tall ones which you can get. They're not even the species ones, because you can get lovely little species ones. So the Delphiniums are one of those ones which give you those spires, those wonderful colours, and they are brilliant plants for the garden. You might occasionally have to stake them. You have to keep an eye on them. They will need a bit of muck and stuff to keep them really going well. But the Delphinium is another real stalwart. Salvias also, so this is one of the shrubby salvias. It's one of the newer types, but there are older varieties as well. So these are the microphylla types, means that they get a little bit shrubby and woody, but they flower and flower and flower, which is really good. Now, a lot of these plants, which are what I would call, you know, the general plants for a cottage garden, are all things that encourage all sorts of different pollinators into the garden. And that is half of the thing with a cottage garden, because you would mix in your vegetables in amongst these flowers, meaning that the flowers are bringing in all the pollinators so that you get more and more on your vegetables, which is great. So this is Salvia hot lips. They are brilliant. They will just keep on going. They give you a riot of colour. They're really a bee magnet and everything else with them. Now, it wouldn't be the summer and things without an Achillea, and the Achilleas are, this is the traditional form of Achillea with the flat plate head. This one is a pink one. This one happens to be Apfelblüte, and this one is an easy plant to look after. So once it's finished flowering, you cut it down. You pretend that you are a herbivore, because basically these grow on ground where the herbivores are coming through and nibbling down, and then the plants come up, and the next lot of herbivores come through maybe 2 months later, flowers, and they eat them down. So that's what these are used to. So if you can do that in your own garden, that is really great. But again, they're introducing other different pollinators into the garden. They're easy to look after. They don't need staking, and that's always really useful with plants. So the Achilleas, again, all sorts of different forms. As I say, this is the flat-headed form. There are giant Achilleas, there are low-growing Achilleas, there are ones which are individual flowers, such as the Tarmica types, which have got green foliage. So these want to be in sun, and they, you know, they are great. And it's a good little combination. So something else which is very traditional and is a wonderful genus is the Santolina. Again, it's a sub-shrub, so it's going to get a little bit woody in the base, but it's got these wonderful bobble yellow, lemon yellow, because this is primrose gem. These are pale lemon yellow flowers on this beautiful green foliage, and this is scented, so this is really good. So this would have been used, this comes under the herb category, and things that plants which were put into cottage gardens or are still put in cottage are things which are useful. So they have other uses other than being really ornamental. But if you are doing a cottage garden style, then you're not really thinking about that. But these are the genus that you need to be thinking about. These are really good genus. The Santolina come in all shapes and forms. This happens to be a green leaf form. You get beautiful grey leafed ones. You get bright yellow flowers. You get really pale lemon, and you get really bushy. So they are fabulous. And the scent off that foliage is really good. I can't remember exactly what they were used for, but it comes in herb books quite a lot. So it is a fabulous thing. And I think probably because of that scent on the foliage, you never see much in the way of insects, in the way of pests on those. So I'm assuming that that perfume from their foliage is a bit of a deterrent to pest insects. Flying in insects for the flowers, absolutely no problem at all. And then the last one in this little lot is the iris, and this is the Sibirican iris. So the irises are fabulous. Look at the colour on this. This one is Caesar's brother, and this is absolutely gorgeous. Look at that dark purple, vivid, virtually violet colours, and they have got multiple flower heads. So they've had a flower here and a flower there. Oh, that's the flower, just got a flower here, so they're going to carry on for a bit longer, and then you get this wonderful grass-like structure of its foliage. Now, with the foliage on something like this, which is grass like that, can be used for weaving. So once they have started to turn brown, they would be cut, and then they would be used to weave, to make baskets and that sort of thing. So there's an awful lot of plant material in this in the genus that I have introduced to you for cottage gardens, which have got all sorts of other uses as well. But as the genus that I have actually am showing you, they are all got other forms in their. They've all got other types within that family. So the Siberican iris is tall, narrow-leaved. If you want the bearded iris, really bold leaves and big flower heads. Go for the little tiny spring iris. So there's all sorts within these genus that you can utilise within the garden. This is just 6 in this phase. You might be wondering what this area is here. This is the area that I have used as the demonstration area for building borders in the new border course. The goal of this border course is to give you the tools to be able to build your dream border. I take you through all of the steps from the beginning of assessing the ground and the space that you have, through the design, how to choose your plants, and in the end, when you have created a border, if you need to change something, how to edit it. This course is drawing upon my 40 years of horticultural experience, both at showing and building garden displays, but also from helping people and doing landscape work out in people's gardens. So this, I want you to be able to learn how to do things and be able to get your dream border. My philosophy for borders is that you have your plants, they are your palette, and you start painting with flowers and create these wonderful displays. If you want more information, there's been a QR code on the screen, or there is a link down below. Please do follow those and enjoy the course. So let's go into plants that really want to be in a sunny position. And there are lots and lots of different things that I could choose, but these are very much cottage garden sunny plants. These are things that you'd think about having in a cottage garden. I've got a dianthus here, and these are delightful. You know, as soon as you see something that has got grey foliage, then you know that you can put them into full sun, pretty free draining soil, and they'll be fine. This particular one, it smells divine, and this is part of the reason why you grow dianthus, not only for the fabulous forms of different types of flower that you get on them. These are an old plant, you know, they've been grown for centuries. Dianthus have been used for cut flower for years and years and years, and they've been bred. And you have the carnation, and you have the garden pinks, which get cut and then you have as cut flower. But you also have these ones, which are the plants that you put into the garden and you enjoy because they flower for such a long period. The grey foliage looks great right the way through, and then after about 3 to 4 years you start to split them up and move them around. But isn't this just such a magnificent one? This one is beautiful with its coloration on there. But the dianthus, again, a huge big family, from really small, really rockery type dianthus right the way through to your really tall cut flower carnations. And they are a fabulous plant. They've been used for perfumery and all sorts of things. So these want to go in full sun. So that is the dianthus. Then we've got the nepeta, or the catmint. Now again, you know, this is something that you'd expect to see in a lot of cottage borders, etc., because they are just a super plant. And again, they have a herbal or that sort of thing because there are oils in the leaves which are utilised. And this is part of the thing with cottage gardens, that a lot of the plant material that was put in there wasn't just pretty, it had a use. And we've forgotten about that. But what we like is we like that beautiful fullness, that free form. We like the fact that there's flower all over the place. And because of utilising all these different flower shapes, you get so many different pollinators and insects, beneficial insects, coming into your gardens because you are using, and because you are mixing things together, some which have got scented foliage, some which have got scented flowers, they're also stopping you from having some of the non-beneficial insects coming into your garden. So the companion planting that was done in cottage garden style is something that sort of gets lost in the more formal style gardens, because in more formal style gardens you end up with a lot of the same plant material, almost monocropping, and therefore as soon as you start to get a single species or genus taking over in one space, all of its is attracting a particular insect, a particular pest, a particular disease. Whereas if you have this style whereby you are utilizing all sorts of different genus, it's a complete mix match, you don't get that idea of monocrop, you don't get the stale soil, you don't get the problems with disease and insects, etc. So it's something we have to look at, and that's what happens out in the wild. You know, the wild is not a monocrop. We have put in just conifer woodlands, we have put in just wheat crops, and that is where we have the problems with getting a lot of the bad, well, not the bad, but encouraging one lot of disease, one lot of insects. That's why we end up with using so much sprays. Whereas if you utilize and you look at the normal wildlife and the outside, you will find that because there are so many different genera, so many different things there, it encourages the beneficial insects, it keeps everything under control and in balance. And that's what happens in a cottage garden style planting. You have got so many different genera, so many different things happening. You have that ecology help. You are keeping it under balance. And that's really quite an important thing to think about. So the Nepitas are brilliant. They're known as catmints. And again, you've got the variety here, which has got a grey foliage. It's a lovely big blue. There are other forms within this, and the same with the dianthus, which will go in shady spots, but I'm talking about the ones for sun at the moment in this particular bit. So sun loving have the grey foliage. You can have white flowered, pink flowered in this form as well. You can have lower growing, you can have taller growing, but they are very much a traditional. And as I've not cue, here comes a wonderful carder bee deciding to have a little eat, having a little bit of a feed at the moment, grabbing some nectar. Pollen will get attached to it, and that's just it. It's going off to different things. So Nepeta are great along with the pinks. Then I've got this one here. Now this one is a daisy. This is a lovely soft lemon daisy. It's going to get to about 2 feet tall. This is Cota sauce hollandaise. Now you probably don't recognize that name. This is what was Anthemus. Now at the moment we seem to be having an awful lot of name changes. This is all being done by DNA testing, and they are, so it's going into cell structure and finding out what they are formed. And a lot of us in horticulture say that the botanists are either splitters or clumpers, and it seems at the moment they are doing a lot of clumping, which means they're taking a lot of peripheral genuses and they are moving them into all one big large family. And this is quite confusing for us as horticulturists. It's also confusing for you at home. If you call it the big pale lemon daisy that grows in the sunny area, I have no problem with that. The only thing will be is when you're looking up and trying to find out what it is. But these are beautiful daisies. They're bigger than a 50p piece. They have lovely lemon outer petals and a darker centre disc on them, so they look really good. They go up with cut foliage. It's got that silvery look to it, so always remember when you see that silvery look on a plant, you're talking about something that will go in a sunny spot. These are brilliant. They're really fantastic, and again that daisy feel in the middle amongst other things looks superb. So these are great. They're going to get your butterflies and the slightly larger insects coming to landing on there. When they've got smaller flowers, it tends to be the smaller insects going for them, but it's still having that array, having all of that difference in flower and shape and form and different genuses, just to encourage more growth and more more diversity in the garden. And I think what happened is that we used to have very free form and lovely, all this cottage garden style. Then it went very formal. That's when we started to get the problems. That's why we have a lot of problems. Even the free form has horticulture in it. You still have to cut back, you still have to tend them. You just do it in a different way, and we change how we are utilizing it. This one is a potentilla. So these often get mistaken for being geums, but they've got a completely different foliage and they have slightly different flower form. This one is white queen. Often people think of potentillas as being shrubs, but there's also a huge amount of potentillas which are herbaceous plants. So that shows you how different within the same genus they can be. They can be shrubs, they can be herbaceous, they can be annuals, they can be like this one wanting to be in full sun, they can be ones that want to go in slightly shady spots. But again, there are lots of different colours. Lots of potentillas are yellow, but there are pink ones, and like this one, beautiful whites. This is absolutely fantastic and it holds itself up well. So this is a lovely one for in the evening when you go out. This will just sparkle because white always shows up when you've got a dark evening night. So that is Potentilla White Queen, really great form. And then let's look at something else, which is lilac. And you're often told that these lilac blues will bring in the bees a lot more and the beneficial insects. Well, the beneficial insects will go to whatever they like. They see the colours in a different way to how we see them. But this is a scabious. This just happens to be one of the dwarf scabious. Really fabulous plants. These are, you can get them in the wild. They love to be in full sun. This one is butterfly blue, but there are other forms. There are tall cut flower ones in the Fama series where the flowers are huge and really beautiful. They're often known as pincushion flowers. They start off with a lovely tight bud like this, open to flower like this, and then you have the seed head like so. You don't need to do a lot in the way of deadheading with these, but very much a beautiful plant for the cottage garden style, for the sunny area. So they want to go in the free draining soil as well. They're just going to make lovely clumps, be shorter, and just a good mix. And then lastly, we've got the Echinacea, and the Echinacea has had a lot of breeding in it. Previously we would have just had the purpurea groups, which would have been purple. They were originally in the Rudbeckia. I am waiting for Echinacea to be clumped back into Rudbeckia. Don't put your arms up in anger at this, but with the way the botanists are going, this used to be Rudbeckia purpurea, so maybe it will go back to being that from Echinacea. I hope not, but you know, you never know what they're going to do. So these are beautiful big daisies. They are the cone flower, so you get this wonderful big cone in the middle. On the Echinacea, the cones tend to stay sort of an orangey colour. On the Rudbeckias, they are black. So you get this lovely daisy form. This one is Pink Sensation. It's just a shorter breeding that there is. There are tall ones. There are beautiful hanging petalled forms, all sorts of different forms within the Echinacea. Again, very diverse in the colour range, right from bright yellows, oranges, right through. It doesn't go into blue. So you've got your pinks, your reds, and then your oranges and your yellows. It's that sort of tonation. Oh, white as well. And then they can be short, they can be tall. Most of them like to be in a sunny position, but you get the odd one which you can push into a slightly shadier position. So again, you can see how good and easy these plants are and how they all fit in to that cottage garden style, and they are great stalwarts of the cottage garden type of planting, and they are the sort of plants that you would see brilliantly in there. And I have chosen the ones which are my favourites to use in cottage garden style planting. This is the sunny side. You've got to think about the later time in the year as well. So not only is there all the summer flowering perennials for the cottage garden, there are also late autumn flowering ones. And this is just a small selection of genus, but these are really typical things that you would find within the garden. So one or two of these are sort of midsummer into late summer, the rest are much more the autumn. So let's start off with the the Sidalcea. This is Sidalcea Rose Queen. This is one of many of the mallow family, and the mallow family is very much a traditional cottage garden plant. So this is going to make lovely huge big clumps. It's got really deep roots, and then up it goes, beautiful spires of big tall dark pink Rose Queen well, you know, rosy coloured flowers on this. Very much a traditional mallow flower. Really, really beautiful, big foliage. So this is an alternative to hollyhocks, because this doesn't actually get the rust, and that's sort of one of the reasons. I haven't put hollyhocks into this particular one. There are lots and lots of other things that you could put into being cottage garden, but these are my favourites. These are my stalwarts of things that you would put into a cottage garden feel and get that effect of wonderful foliage, beautiful flowers, just an array and of sort of that chocolate box picture of cottage garden plants, and that's what we're really looking at. So the Sidalcea or the mallow family are really good. Now, with a lot of the genus that I'm talking about, some of the plants that are in that genus will go in full sun. Some of the plants will go in shade. Some of them will tolerate any conditions. Some of them will prefer drier, some will prefer that is the reason for doing just one plant, but saying it's the genus, because you could find one that's within that group. So for instance, if you wanted a Sidalcea that liked the shade, you'd go for Sidalcea candida. And you know, there are various things within the groups, the campanulas, all of these. There are plants which will go in sun, there are plants that will go in shade, those that will like clay, those will like sand. So it's really brilliant to just look and think, all right, okay, I like that genus, but what can I grow in my garden? Then to get height in the garden and have that frothiness and fullness in a garden, you can't do better than a thalictrum. Now, thalictrums are great. Again, they have a different flower. They are attracting different insects into the garden, which is great. The more insects you get, the more bird life you get, the more alive the garden is, and the continuity of flower, both high and low, and all that mixture of plant material just gives for a really wonderful feel. It's airy and great. This one happens to be Thalictrum elin. It goes up really tall, but you see strong stems. Again, you can get ones of these which are really low, you can get the taller ones, you can get airy ones, you get all sorts of different colours. So the Thalictrum is another one in my choice here. Very much the stalwart of any cottage garden are probably these three here. Now, this one here, which is now Hylotellephium, the sedum. This one here, the hardy chrysanthemum. And this one here, what was aster or the Michaelmas daisy. Those are your autumn flowering plants. And then if you just bring in this one as well, this one is the perennial sunflower. So you've got a real array of fantastic different shapes of flowers, all for the autumn period, because that's when these are all coming into their own. As soon as we get to a point where the day length is shorter, these are all going to start coming into flower, and it's what I call the daisy time of year, except for the sedums or Hylotellephiums. Otherwise, you're going to have loads and loads of daisies of different sizes and colours, and it'll be absolute riot. So this one happens to be a dwarfer Symphyotrichum. This one is Neron. This has got really spunky pink flowers on it. They're really bright, they're fabulous, wonderful, pinky red. They're absolutely superb. It's probably more of a pink purple, but they're really bright, and they are fabulous. And this is a lowish middle of the height one. Very strong, really easy grower, fantastic for the late season. The hardy chrysanthemum, this one is Dixter orange, beautiful, big, bright orange chrysanthemums which are going to flower and flower and flower, and all of these can be cut for the home. So they're things that are, you know, that would just bring joy. You'd cut a few, put them in a little vase, and that's it, a little bit of the garden inside. I know some people don't like doing it, but if you're going to have to deadhead anyway, why not deadhead just a little bit early, take a few inside, they'll die off, and then you can put them on the compost heap. You're not wasting them, it's just something that you can do with the flowers. Then on all of these there are different sizes, so chrysanthemums from this side, chrysanthemums from that side, the same with the Michaelmas daisies, you know, dwarf ones, tall ones, an array of colours, ones that want to go in hot sun, ones which go in shady soils. So, you know, this is just a plant out of these genus, but there are so many positions that if you choose the right form will go in your garden. Hylotelephium or sedum, this just happens to be one of the shorter growing ones. This is Bertram Anderson, this is quite an older variety. This is one which goes down, so this is quite a lovely one for over walls, etc. And it has lovely red flowers on it, so this is a fantastic form. These come in white, they come in pink, they come in tall, they come in short. So again, the Hylotelephium, a really useful plant for the garden and easy to look after. Then you get the Helianthus, Helianthus salicifolius. So this one has got willow leaves, so it looks a little bit like a willow. This is narrow leaves. This one's going to get really huge, back of the border, beautiful yellow flowers late on in the season. So again, a little bit of bright and hope at the end of the year with that wonderful coloration. So all of these are going to be great. There are, again, the Helianthus, there are all sorts, including annuals, your normal sunflowers. So very, very useful plants within the cottage garden, giving you that wonderful array, and especially autumn colour like this. Where would we be with cottage garden planting without the stalwarts of the beautiful annuals and the roses? Now, I know a lot of you will have seen me talking about roses before and the fact that I don't actually like roses. Now, that is a personal choice, and it is that I do not like to grow them in my own garden. It has nothing to do with that I don't like roses per se. People's gardens, beautiful rose gardens like near us, Mottisfont Abbey, absolutely stunning plantings of roses, beautifully trained, looking fantastic. But I'm sorry, it's that training, it's the looking after them, it is the fact that they have violent thorns, and whenever I tend to go near them, I seem to end up with very bloody hands. And it's not because I don't take care when I'm doing it. I put gloves on, I've had gauntlets, you name it, I can still end up with blood, the thorns get me and that sort of thing. So roses are a very old plant for gardens. Apothecary gardens, all sorts of gardens have had roses in them because the rose petals are used for making rose water. Rose water is very good for calming, it's good for skin, even can be used, as far as I'm aware, for people to add to drinks and things. And more recently, rose water is put into ice creams for flavouring. You can make confetti out of it. It has so many uses, potpourri from the dried rose petals and all of those sorts of things. So roses not only are beautiful and look stunning, but they have uses as well, which we have forgotten in our modern day and age, that actually the reason for people putting plants into gardens was so that they could utilize something from them. Not only that they were pretty, but there was a use for them, because you couldn't go out and buy everything in the olden days. You had to probably make it. So that's why you grew a lot of different types of plants, so that you could make the odd drink or quench, maybe to stop someone having a stomach ache, or all of those sorts of things. And we've forgotten how to do a lot of that, but that is the reason why a lot of these plants have ended up in the more modern garden. And the roses are something that have been bred, and you have got all of these different colours and different forms. You've got really dwarf ones now, you've got ones that can be grown in the house, you have got the really tall ones, you've got your climbers, hybrid teas. There are lots and lots of different roses out there, but the traditional sorts of roses would have been the ramblers. They would have been the ones that could have been trained up over the walls, over the thatch roof, or maybe up a tree, or there would have been a small bush rose or something like that. All of that would have been what would have traditionally been used. So the rose as a family is an incredibly important garden plant, both for the cottage garden and for others. So I will put aside my fact that I don't like them, and in actual fact I've just counted up in my garden, and I think I've actually got 7 different roses, and in this vase I've got 4 which are from the garden. So these are really quite sweet. This is a little dwarf one, this is a lovely old-fashioned one, this is a really good scented one, and then this is a single one. Now I like the single ones. I have to say I do like the single ones because they tend not to have too many thorns on them. So that is just my preference. But they are very important. So that's the roses, really important as part of the planting. Then we have our annuals, and I have got a poppy, I've got an umbellifer, I've got a wallflower, and I've got a lupin. Now these are all important in different ways. So the poppies are fantastic. As an annual, they are brilliant because they flower, they drop, they set seed, they flower, they flower, they flower. So they are really good at perpetually flowering for a long period of time. This particular one here is a ROAS type, and it has big open flowers and a range of colours. This particular one is amazing grey. It's not to my liking, that coloration, but that's fine. I prefer to have the slightly brasher red ones, to be honest. But poppies are brilliant. And then of course poppy seed is used for on the top of breads and things like that, so you can understand why they were used. And also annuals were free plants, and it meant that the space was taken up with plants that could be used if you didn't need them. Annuals are very easy to chop the tops off or quickly pull out if you don't want them in the garden, because maybe they're taking up a bit of space, but they are good for the time being to fill up the space and keep it looking good. So I really like the poppies. This particular one, as I say, is an annual form. There are, however, perennial forms of poppy. So you've got the oriental poppy, for instance, with the huge big heads with massive clumps of foliage. And again, they do go into a cottage garden, but they're sort of a one-trick pony, whereas the annuals keep on going and keep on going. You've then got the perennial Welsh poppy, which is in its yellows and oranges, so they get different colours in those, and that is a perennial form and seeds around in shady areas. So you've got some for sun, some for shade. So look at the wider picture within the plant family and you will find that. You don't get blue in poppy, even though the blue poppies are called blue poppies. They're another genera. They are Mechanopsis. Not sure whether they will stay as Mechanopsis, but I think they will, because they've got a different form on there and they prefer an acid soil, whereas these types will be much better in neutral to slightly alkaline soils. So you've got plants which will go in all sorts of different areas from the poppy plants, and you've got different types. So that's something to be aware of with all of the genera I've been talking about. There are perennial, there are annual, there are maybe even shrubby. There are some shrubby poppies, but not in the same family. They're called poppies, they aren't the same family. Then we've got this Orlaya. Now I've brought this one because this is a really fun one. This is great for cut flower, and it also will self-seed around quite nicely in a sunny spot. So there are lots and lots of umbelliferae, and if you think about it, a lot of umbelliferae are food crops. So parsnips, carrots, they are all umbelliferae. So they are, you know, again, it's useful. And if you allow some to get, you know, you would always allow some of your vegetables to have gone to seed because you needed your seed for the next year. You couldn't go to the supermarket or the garden centre and go and buy packs of seed. You had to collect your own and utilise it that way. So that is why, you know, you get these umbels and coming through. Now a lot of the food crop ones, the umbels are different colours, but they are really great and they're useful. So they can be either biennial, annual, biennial, or you do get some perennial forms. So I've widened this because Orlaya is a very, very small genus. But if you look at the umbels as a whole, as a family, if you think of it in that way, slightly spreading the botanical there. But you've got some very, very useful umbels. You've got some wonderful ones for actually bringing in insects to use, because these will get the hoverflies, and the hoverflies are really important because the adult hoverflies need somewhere to lay their eggs, and then their larvae are absolutely fantastic as control of the non-wanted insects. So it's always good to have all of this different in the way of flower shape, different types of flowers. Then you go to the wallflower. Now this particular wallflower here, which which is Erysimum joy, is actually a perennial one. It will last for about 4 years, but it flowers and flowers and flowers. Now, traditionally, wallflowers were grown as a crop. They could have been grown as a cash crop, so you would grow them in your vegetable beds when your vegetable beds were empty, and you would bunch them up and sell them to people who didn't have them. Very good little earner. But also they would have been put into the borders when they were just before they were ready to flower. So they're grown over winter in the beds of the veg beds, keeping the veg beds going, and then they would be dug up and they would be put into the garden. Then they flower and they have beautiful scent. They can be a mass, an array of all sorts of different colours, through the oranges, reds, purples, pinks, and they then are early flowering, bringing in the beneficial insects, which is what you want in the garden, and then they would be lifted and they'd be put onto the compost heap, and they make really good starting for your compost. So very useful. So sometimes people think annuals are a waste of time, but in actual fact, if you think of them as green manure, then they aren't a waste of time. So that's what they would have been used for. So there are different types of Erysimums, some which want to go in really dry, some that will be a little bit taller, those that are annual, and moving on to ones which are short-lived perennials. So again, you see you've got that large range of what you can get within that family, and it's wonderful to look at them and understand that there are different things that you can grow, but it's very archetypal for the cottage garden. Then one of the last ones here is the lupin. Now this is the most fabulous lupin. Look at the bright colour on this. Now I'm sorry that you can't actually smell this. Oh, it's absolutely divine. It's the most gorgeous, soft, sweet perfume. It really is lovely, and that will waft out all over the place. It doesn't just have the first spike, it's going to have branch spikes of flower coming up through here. A true annual, so it was set from seed very early on in the spring. It has come through now up into flower. It will flower beautifully for about 2 to 3 months, then it will die down. It'll get these beautiful pods on it. You collect the seed and you have it for next year. In the meantime, because this is a legume, so it's got pea-like flowers here on these things, that means that it's got nitrogen fixing roots. And with the nitrogen fixing roots, not only is it able to fix the nitrogen in the soil for its own use, it also allows a little bit to go out into the soil. So therefore they are very good for soil regeneration, and it is brilliant. Now I know in some countries, so I'm sorry to those people who are in New Zealand about the lupins that you have got over there. As visitors, we think your absolute glades of lupins look stunning, but I know you are trying to get rid of them because they are an invasive species with you in New Zealand. And this is the story of how things can become invasive in a country where they are not native. So for instance, Europeans went over with their favourite plants, took their seeds with them, they put them in the garden, they escaped into the wild, and in New Zealand they just carpet everywhere. Look fabulous, but they are not native flora, and you are trying to eradicate it, and I fully understand that. But here in Europe, or even the UK, lupins are a natural plant, especially these annuals. There are lovely fields of them, and they are very, very good, as I say, for nitrogen fixing, especially the annual ones. And even if you don't leave them there and let it all fall back down, you can take the plant, put it on the compost heap. That is really good, but think of them as a green manure. They're doing the ground good. Also, because they are legume, they're getting a lot of beneficial insects into the garden as well. So fabulous things, the lupins. And again, they come in all sorts of different colours. This has got grey foliage. There's a lovely blue annual one as well, which is fabulous. Then there are your perennial forms, and they can be short, they can be tall, they can be really chunky, but a cottage garden would not be a cottage garden without its lupins in there. Lupins and roses and delphiniums. What could be more cottage boxy than that? Then the last one I've got here, which I have got seeding around all around in my gravel garden, is the Nigella, or the Love in the Mist. Now these are just beautiful flowers, and you can see I've got a blue form here and I've got a slightly whiter form, and you can get pink, you can get yellow. They are really fun. They have this lovely strong stems, they hold themselves up well, very, very cut divided foliage. You get the wonderful flower and then the most amazing seed head. They are then dried, and you can keep them as dried, or you just allow them to self-seed around the garden, because again they are your free plants. Once you've got them there, think of them as a seed factory. They are there and they're just going to ping their seed around and it'll just come up wherever you want. They are so easy to pull out if they're in the wrong place. If they're in better soil, you will get lovely branched plants. If they're in poorer soil, like they are in my gravel garden, you'll get single stems, and you'll either have them at this height or this height, and they look fantastic, just en masse, looking really good, waving in the breeze. And then as the petals fall off, then you get these wonderful seed heads which look stunning as well. And as I say, you can have them as cut flower, you can leave them there, you can dry the seed heads. So lots and lots of uses for all of these annuals, and the roses are quintessentially cottage garden. There could be masses of others, and I understand, but I had 30 genera for me to pick from. I chose the ones which I like, I would use in my cottage garden style planting. It is very difficult to then think, oh, I could have this, I could have that. I could have chosen 120. That would have been far too many. So I had to narrow it down to these ones and just say how different within those families you can find different things, and you'd be able to find something in all of the ones that I've spoken about that you could put in your garden and enjoy and create a cottage garden style. Thank you very much for watching, and please do subscribe to the channel. If you want to watch another video of mine, YouTube thinks this one is perfect for you.